Hello everyone, so I'm adding Elizabeth because we are about to start our co-creator space blast number 9. I just need to find her. So let me find Elizabeth. I found her. Zack. Yes. So Elizabeth, you're supposed to be coming into the room. Yes!
Yay!
It worked!
It works! Yay! So it was so funny when you said it's 9 and we're feeling fine. Like the Count from Sesame Street, that was a song that he used to sing, like the Transylvania polka, and it's we're feeling fine. Now it's 10, wonderful 10, but we're not quite there yet. So hi, welcome.
Hello! So we're talking today about the power of beliefs. I have like no culture like the American culture. That's something I'm learning. I'm still learning and discovering all the things that exist.
I'm also like slightly older than you, slightly, just a little bit. Très petit bit.
Yeah, just a bit. Not that much.
Not that much. Like I like to say, and this is perfect for beliefs because I always like to say you may be younger, but I'm more immature.
That's possible. That's a belief that you have about yourself.
It's
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a belief. It's a belief. And what do we believe? We don't know. And we realize that when we realize that we believe.
Yep.
Which makes no sense. But sometimes it happens. And we wanted to start the discussion with a quote. And that's the idea that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And who said that? Henry Ford. And I love this idea. If you believe something, it's going to become reality. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about beliefs, what do we mean? So to make sure I knew what I was talking about, I took a dictionary and I have some definitions for you. And so the first definition of a belief is that it is a state or a habit of mind in which trust or confidence is placed in some person or thing. So it's about confidence and believing something is true or not. Something that is accepted, considered to be true, or held as an opinion, something believed. And the last definition is about conviction of the truth of some statement or the reality of some being or phenomenon, especially when based on examination of evidence. It was just behind my phone, that's why I had to move it. And while we were preparing with Elizabeth, we say that basically a belief is not true, not always true. It's just a mental map that we use to make sense of reality.
Yep.
And so that's what we are going to talk about today. And you may wonder, but who are those girls or women? Because we are a bit older than what we may look. And so we are very young. And so the first person that's talking or that has been preparing, switching on everything, is me, Anne-Cécile Graeber. I am an intercultural organizational development specialist. I am a systemic coach and a facilitator. So many hats, I don't even know how to call myself anymore. And I am with my co-captain, Elizabeth Lemke, who is the Chief Talent Navigator. And she's helping guide through talent development, learning, and branding at Transforming Talent. So that's what we do as individuals.
That's what we do. It is true.
And we love it. We just love it.
Yep.
And so we have been on a journey with those blasts. It's the number 8 already. And we had many, like 7 before. It's logic, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Well, I'm not going to count.
Wait a second. I believe we're actually on blast 9.
That's possible. That is possible. We are on blast 9.
See, I challenge your beliefs.
Yeah, you did. And it was good because I was totally wrong.
But that's the brilliance of beliefs is if you can challenge them. That's one of the things is that they're not so set in stone. that if you can find that aha, then your you know, your rose-colored glasses can be taken off, or they can also be put on depending upon your point of view.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I love about all the story about beliefs. You can change them if you want. If you realize they're not helping you, you are welcome to change them. It's not that easy, but it's possible. And so we did some previous blast. If you want to watch them, just go on YouTube. We have a channel there. You can subscribe. That would be awesome to support us and show that, you know, you love what we do, or you want to, you know, to discover more about that. And if you watch the last blast, you would know that we always have a song. We don't sing it.
Yeah, we gotta have a song. Gotta have a song.
Like we have no choice. Like we love music. And so we have been nice enough for you to not sing. So we just read the lyrics, you know, so that it's not start to
no
rain. That
copyright infringement.
Exactly. And maybe we do, but we don't know. So we just read the text and we'll see. So the song is I Believe in Miracles from Hot Chocolate. So you can imagine the music.
You sex thing, you sex thing.
And somehow, Elizabeth, you are frozen. You're back. You were frozen, and maybe I was.
Back in black, you know, a little bit of AC/DC to go with hot chocolate. That's how we roll.
Yeah, that's going to be good. And so about the lyrics, let me read them because I don't know them by heart, not yet. And it starts like this. Where did you come from, baby? How did you know I needed you? How did you know I needed you so badly? How did you know I'd give my heart gladly? Yesterday I was one of the lonely person. Now you're lying close to me, making love to me. I believe in miracles. Where you're from, you sexy thing you. I believe in miracles. Since you came along, you sexy thing. So maybe the sexy thing could be a belief, you know, who knows?
Yeah,
What
yesterday he was with the lonely people and he was sad, blue, it seems like. And then she came into his life and then all of a sudden the sun's out. All of a sudden he's in love. All of a sudden there's all these wonderful things around. And, you know, maybe this lady doesn't even exist. Maybe it's just in his mind where he decided, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be one of those lonely people anymore. I'm going to be some hot chocolate.
Yes. And that's the thing about those beliefs is that we can really choose to take off the glasses and say, okay, now I'm going to see blurry stuff and like it or not. And do we speak about the biases right now? Do you want to start with the questions?
So I'm going to start actually with a bad joke. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a bad joke that's going around, which I thought was actually quite hilarious. So it came off of Facebook and it was, Dear Atheists, how do you explain that the dinosaurs got killed by an asteroid, but not the cavemen? And so the answer actually is dun 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 dun, social distancing. They stayed 65 million years apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? So it is that piece to say, what are your beliefs? You know, I don't want to go too far down the thing around evolution, but to say, okay, here, the joke is funny because it plays with this piece around what do you believe, what do you not believe, and depending upon your point of view. And that's the thing about beliefs is that you can have a little tear in them and then they become so apparent. But oftentimes you don't see what your belief is because it's so self-evident in your brain that it's just become how you kind of orient yourself in the world. And it's not something that you reflect upon. The challenge is if we don't reflect upon these things, there can be very limiting beliefs that get into our way. Exactly like Anne-Cecile said at the beginning of the call, whether believe you can or you believe you can't, you are right. And so this is that piece to say, how do we understand around what do we see? So, as you know us by now, there's going to be a little bit of a game. There's going to be a little bit of a challenge because that's how we roll. So we're going to ask you about your beliefs when we talk about a couple of terms, okay? So I want you guys to think of, whatever comes into your mind. And what association do you have? When I say the word money, what comes into your mind? Yes, exactly. Money, money. A little bit of ABBA, a little bit of Making It Rain.
Yeah, we'll make it rain.
Exactly. Man, we're having a very interesting call today. Bill, you joined at a good point.
At the right time.
We'll get back to being PG, not PG-13. Okay. What do you think? So right now what we're doing is we're doing associations around beliefs. When you think about particular terms, what do you believe, or what's the association that comes up into your mind? Okay, so we first had money, and so we had that. When we think about cheese, what do we think about when we hear cheese? All right. Are you pulling up? Exactly. We have some pride here. We have some, really good cheeses coming out of France.
Some French.
Absolutely. I would say I think of the plastic cheese, the plastic American cheese. We used to have a family duck, and it used to eat that, and it was the best for grilled cheese sandwiches. Okay, so next term, what do we think of? When we think of quality, what exactly feels like cheese? Exactly. We're doing beliefs, and so that's why we're doing associations. So when I say the word quality, what do you associate with the word quality? What do you believe is behind the word quality? Nice. Wow. I'm loving the props, Anne-Cecile. Exactly. Quality made in Germany. Quality not necessarily made on the fly 10 minutes before you have to do a presentation. Exactly. Okay. When we think of the word team, what do we think of? And this was really interesting. Pre-COVID and now mid-COVID. Who's on my team? Is it the people I'm sitting next to? Is it my work team in terms of who I'm having exchanges on a project team? Remote? Exactly. Is it that remote team? How do we have those close relationships? So here, the next term is conference. What do we think about when we're having a conference? Pre-COVID, it was
in a room.
Yeah, in a room. We're getting our business cards out. Now we don't even remember if we have business cards or extra note cards. So
yeah, we send a LinkedIn link.
LinkedIn link, exactly. So this whole idea around conferences next week, it's exactly, Bill, it's virtual. And so how do we make a virtual conference also really engaging? Hi, Micha. Very good. All right. Wonderful. So what we're doing right now is we're doing word associations for your beliefs. Okay. So the next one, so we had cheese, we had France. Oh, yes.
Quality.
France. That's the next one. What do you associate with France? All right. We're gonna small breakout rooms with France. Well, okay. That's probably back to the conference. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So what do we associate with France? Wine. See, Bill is so smart. I mean, come on. Yeah, absolutely. And this actually goes back to a competition that's going to be going on next week, right? Anne-Cecile?
On my side, well, it's maybe on the 14th of July, so the French National Day. There will be probably a wine tasting, Germany against France, where we will kick your ass, like the Germans.
See, it's good that Oregon is not taking part. Otherwise, that would be kind of the deal breaker. All right.
I know. I'm so say it now. But I love German wine, so don't feel too attacked.
Love it. Okay, the next term that we're thinking about. So the next term that we have is innovation. What do you think about when you think about innovation? What's the beliefs that we have when it comes to innovation? Is there a department that's responsible for it? Are we only thinking about product innovation? What are the other things around innovation that we think of? New. Very good. Innovation
Yeah.
to be new. Yeah.
Creativity would also be a word.
Mm-hmm. Creating. Nice. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Here, the thing around what oftentimes is who can be part of, yeah, blend and merge. So
Mm.
getting ideas together and building out a new idea. What about
Mm-hmm.
divergent thinking? So here also thinking, here, how can things be combined new? How can things be very different? So thinking about this term around also what is an innovation, and what perhaps is an evolutionary process where we change something. Because we like to say, not everything needs to be an innovation, but
Yeah.
everything is subject to evolution. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Come to
Yeah.
know.
Very nice. And yeah, exactly. Innovation doesn't necessarily always have to be new. Yeah. It could also be
Mm-hmm.
that piece around what is the timing of it? Because at times, it can be that the environment or the context for the invention just isn't there yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. All right. The next question that we have, what is the association or beliefs that you have in regards to COVID? What do we think about when we think about COVID?
Don't host, it's German. Don't cough in public.
Don't cough in public. Exactly. So the vampire. So we're dabbing. Yeah. Okay.
And hand washing.
Yeah. Or people are ready finally. Yeah, true enough. People are ready for the innovation that they can actually
Yeah.
absorb it and that it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Very good point. Very good point, Bill. So this piece around COVID's been around. This is the 19th iteration, but it's really been on our radar screens. And so this is that piece to say, also things affect your beliefs as to is something on your radar screen in terms of it has to become relevant. So as we consider and as we look to things that that we integrate, and as we are exposed to them, and here I don't mean exposed by being sick, I mean, yeah, 19th iteration, maybe there were a couple more, but this is a piece to say that here, as we look to our beliefs, it is also that piece to say, there's these things that could have been going on for years, or in different situations, in different contexts. But to Bill's point, were people ready for them? Were they aware of them? Was it something in terms of a risk reward that all of a sudden these things that were going on are on our radar screen? And that's what we wanted to say about, here as we look to how are we confronting beliefs. It's also that piece to say, beliefs and are very, very helpful because they can give an orientation and a schemata around the world and how we're orienting ourselves in it. So the piece where it really is important to examine your paradigms in terms of how you see the world is when you're noticing, okay, how is this perhaps limiting? How can I perhaps reframe or take a different approach? And all of a sudden I see a much wider view as to what is possible. And so what we wanted to talk about a little bit here is, there's been a lot in the area of HR and talking about CVs as to how do we get rid of bias completely? How do we just do something based upon an assessment of skills? And this is where to say, are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Because biases and beliefs can be very, very fruitful and helpful, but it's important to examine what's behind it. Because, for example, if we just look at the skills, then we're perhaps ignoring the experience that someone made in order to get there. So it's always that question as we examine our beliefs. We're not saying, just say everything goes away, but saying, are they useful? Are they fit for purpose? And are they perhaps standing in our way? So Anastasia is going to take us through some important cognitive biases as to these are things to consider as you're looking at the world.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to remember that those are risky only when they're risky. So they are useful most of the time. That's why our brain developed those biases, because it helped us survive so far. Yeah. So there is no way we can delete them. It's just the way our brain is built. So awareness is a first step of, knowing what to do about them. And one that is, I think, important is the anchoring effect or anchoring bias. It's when you are given a basic information, and you base your decision afterward based on this first information, so anchor. So if I tell you that a consultant is paid 10,000 euros an hour, and if I come after and I say, well, in fact, I'm just paid 5,000, then you may be happy to buy me, you know, because you're anchored. There is also, there are many. So there are lists in the internet. If you go to Wikipedia, there are hundreds of them, but I'm going to give 2 or 3 of them. Another one is the availability, ich kann nicht, heuristic. And that's the idea that I saw something very similar the last time on LinkedIn, so I believe it's true. So you remember things because you believe they're true because you saw them already. So if you only see white people applying to jobs, then you believe there are only white people applying to jobs, which is maybe not the fact, because you may be biased somewhere else where you kicked out all the diversity that's possible. And so those are some of the biases that we have. We have also the blind spot bias, when we don't see that we don't see.
Perhaps what I can actually just go back to that thing. There was actually a big thing on so the Society for HR, and there was a person saying, you know, diversity isn't so important, and that we, you know, in terms of we have to make sure that our standards around how we have different hires. And it was awful in terms of thinking, you know, diversity hires, that somehow we would be lowering our standards. So these are those pieces to say, what are those biases? What are those beliefs that, you know, even when we're talking about something, we really need to consider, where am I perhaps having an absolute blind spot? And particularly as we look to Black Lives Matter, as we look to Pride month this month, there's a lot of things that we need to re-examine to say, okay, how are we seeing these things? I can give a local example. So in Oregon, there was a big discussion because a drag queen was reading to children about self-acceptance. And on the one hand, there were a lot of people in support saying, this is wonderful. This is talking about plurality. This is us as a community. Who are we? And then there was this other side saying, you know, what are we doing to our children? How could we bringing this in? And it was really shocking. And for me, the question immediately came, why is it okay if someone dresses up as Mary Poppins or Nanny McPhee or a clown and reads to children? Yeah. Why is there no problem there, but suddenly with drag? So this is that piece to say, it's a good example to say, what are those biases and how are they standing in the way? And how do we deal with it constructively to say, hey, you know, the role of education is, how are we building character? How are we building full-rounded people? And this piece around what is that broader awareness that just because you're different doesn't mean you're not fully worthy. Yeah, so this is an example.
Yeah, and I think there is another bias that's really important to know about. It's the confirmation bias. Which is that when you believe in something, your brain will look for information that confirms it, and it will check every possible information that says you're right. And every time you're exposed to something that is not your belief, you will find ways to say, oh, it's not relevant, or it's not a good study, or you always lower the level of the non-confirming information. And I think that's something that's, when you know that, then the question is, how do I make sure that I expose myself to as many information that are against my beliefs and as the ones that are for my belief? Because if I only focus on what I believe and my brain is just trained or built this way that I just confirm it, then how do I make sure that I'm confronted to things that are against my own beliefs, to challenge myself, you know? Yeah. And as an organization, how do we make sure that we confront ourselves with other kind of beliefs, other ways of working? And I had a very nice exchange today about a company who had women taking care, like it was on a production. Some women were especially taken for a specific task. I don't really know why, but that was in the production. They had one task to build up something on a machine. And someone came along and said, why and someone had to bring them the material on the table, and they would build up the machine, the mechanism. And someone asked, but why don't they just take the material themselves? It takes them an hour because they're waiting for someone to bring the material to the table. Why don't they do it themselves? And they said, but women can't. They're too weak. They can't carry that stuff. They're not made for that. And the guy said, well, let's just try. And even the women were like, no, we can't. We never did that. And they just tried. And he said, let's try 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We will teach you how it works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll leave it. And the thing is, after 3 weeks of trying this, women do everything on their own. They realized that they could do it, and they were faster because they didn't have to wait an hour. It took them 10 minutes to bring the stuff to the table and to work on the mechanism. And they would have never thought about that if this guy hadn't come into the organization to say, hey, why is it like this way? And to really confront them about this confirmation bias that women can't carry heavy stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's one of the challenges. And as we take that back and look at co-creation, one of the biggest pieces is also oftentimes groupthink. So that's a beautiful example of we can't because we never have done before. That's just the way things are done here. And as we look to how are we co-creating, how are we understanding, what might be an innovation in terms of being ready for it around the context, in terms of how are we teaming, or for example, that innovation is not just, or quality is not just a department, but everyone's involved in it. It's this piece to say, how are these beliefs, how are these pieces getting in our way? And what can we do in terms of small little experiments to say, okay, what can we do to challenge this? So, so as we go on, and so this blast is the first of a three-part of module 3, which is beliefs, principles, and culture. In this first one, we really wanted to just kind of set the stage as we look to the beliefs. It's really this piece around how is this helpful? Because there's pieces that are absolutely helpful, because it's this piece around collaboration, camaraderie. Here, for example, a focus on efficiency. But as we look to, is this effective? Is this fit for purpose? Is this actually what the customer really needs? Does this help the user in the way that he or she really needs it? This is where, when we go and when we examine in the co-creator space, the beliefs, it's really about that question. Is this fit for purpose? Is this really taking into account how we operate under the principles? And in this piece around how are we really creating an inclusive environment? So that's really, so thanks, Bill. So this is that piece to say, this is the first part. So we just want you to go away from today's meeting to really think about here, how do you believe in those miracles? How do you believe, here, what are those pieces that you bring to the table around how you see the world, and that can be beneficial? Absolutely. And there's a unique viewpoint there. And where do you have perhaps some friction where it can help you have different discussions together with your team, together with your organization, together better understand your customer or your friends and family? So here we are inviting you as the final piece to have your own belief challenge. France, Germany, Oregon, Pinot Noirs. This will be the piece around what do you believe will win.
And I think it's a very good challenge. We have to do that. Exactly. We'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll do the wine tasting, virtual wine tasting.
Exactly. So on July 14th, there will be a virtual wine tasting between Oregon, France, and Germany.
That's awesome. I love it.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you so much. Hi,
for joining.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find us. We are on YouTube under Co-Creator Space. We are on a website, co-creator.space. We are on Instagram here, co-creator.space, and we are on LinkedIn. Yeah.
We're everywhere. We're
We're
mostly
everywhere. Exactly. So we really love that you are here. I'm Elizabeth Lemke.
I'm Anne-Cécile Graeber.
And we really appreciate you being here for the Co-Creator Blast. We wish you
number 9.
Number 9. And we're feeling fine. And then there's going to be 10, 10, wonderful 10. All right.
Yes.
So those of you who are huge fans of the Muppet Show, that was us signing off.
Exactly. So you can watch the video afterward. If you just came at the end, Amara, you can watch the video later.
Yeah.
As a Instagram, TV, whatever.
Yeah, we're so glad that you came and hope you get something out of it. And any questions that you have, please let us know. Oh, and please be sure to put your answers underneath in our comments section. We're curious to see what you will answer when you do the little belief association. Go Oregon!
Awesome.
Oregon. All right, bye.
Bye-bye. See you. Enjoy your evening.
Enjoy your evening.